This is it, as they say.
I fear no evil.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning.
Okay.
Oh, no.
It's the holiday season.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant!
There's like a phaser, not like a Star Trek communicator or a phase, that kind of phaser, but a phaser effect on that brilliant. It's pretty neat. You'd have to hear it repeatedly, which let's just do that for a second. Check this out. Oh, shit. Well, here we go.
Brilliant!
Should be repeating.
Brilliant!
Oh, I see.
Brilliant!
Well, you get the picture.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
All right, here we are. There's the title card that brought you here. And we'll get into that in a little bit. It's 5:23 a.m. Eastern Time on 31st of December 2021. This is basically the 365th, 365th show I've done. In other words, I did a show every day this year. Some days I did two, and one or two of my shows might have been taken down, but it all averages out to about 365 shows. Most shows were close to 2 hours long. It's got to be a Guinness World Record. I mean, I know there's people out there that do daily shows, but they take Sunday off, or they take the weekends off, or whatever. You know, some people do once a week. And you know, the funny thing is 365 shows, an hour and a half to 2 hours long, completely not monetized in any way, shape, or form. I should have made like several $100,000 this year on YouTube. I didn't make a zero zilch. Anyway, since I'm up so early, got up at 3 something. I've got a stack of Happy New Year napkins, but nothing really to do with them because I'll be asleep tonight by 6 probably. Today's going to be a continuation of yesterday's show. And, you know, which brings us to, this is a fitting picture. Now, I took this picture. And I took this picture on the street where I live. Now, eventually, that entire building was demolished. Okay. But, you know, it's just it's a classic photo that, you know, I have a whole series of these photos that I had intended to, you know, have blown up, printed out on canvas. You know, they do that now. They've got this canvas type paper, frame them and do an exhibit in a gallery. And they are quite remarkable. And like I say, I'm not just, this isn't like an egotistical thing. You know, this is a realistic, you know, thing. I can appreciate, one has to appreciate their own art, their own creativity. Otherwise, you know, there has to be a method to your madness, to your obsession, right? Creative obsession, whatever drives you to do these things. Obviously, thousands and thousands of cars and trucks passed by this on this street, this exact image. People walked past this, you know, hundreds perhaps of people. But no one really saw it as what it represents, and, you know, let alone tried to capture it in its profundity. All right. And, this is, if we were lucky, this would be the remains of what's going to happen in the coming years. But chances are not even this will remain, this type of thing. All that will really remain will be mountains like you can see in the distance, but those trees themselves will be pretty much taken down to the stump. But they'll regrow. And that's what CO2 does. It helps the trees grow. We've been misled, deceived, lied to. Everything you know is wrong. And you don't know what you don't know. Those are the recurring themes over the last 365 shows. The programs I've brought to you every day in the year 2021. Every day this past year. Did anyone listen? No. Did anyone watch? Very few. Those who did watch, what did they get out of it? Right? My undershirt does not match my overshirt. But then again, what can you do? I was going to do the show in black and white completely, but I just wanted to get on with it because it's 5:28 a.m. Eastern time. I laid in bed. The cat was trying to get me up again, and it's like, okay, so what is it? You hungry or something? I feel good. I feel good. I had a good night's sleep, and I feel good physically and mentally. My eyes may look a little bit tired. It's morning. Just got up, basically, having a cup of coffee. But I mean, I feel, in other words, I feel like a human being, Sometimes you just feel under the weather, or you're just not perfect. You got some aches and pains or something like that. No, I just feel like normal, all systems operating. But, so, I mean, it's nothing perceivable by the animal mind. And so I give it some treats down. It doesn't eat its food. It didn't eat its food last night. But, it's, cat's healthy. So I don't know. These cats go through these things. Anyway, this show isn't about cats. What I'm trying to say is I've been up for a couple hours kind of rolling around in bed, maybe dozing back off, but now I'm into it. And let's try to...
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
I pulled out, for some reason, Noah's ability to generate an animation is temporarily down. However, this is an infrared view of water vapor in the atmosphere that was taken within the past hour or so, a little over an hour ago. Where I am right now, it's 48 degrees outside, which sounds like a repeat of yesterday. Today it's going to be a high of 54 degrees, and it's not supposed to rain. Saturday in the mid-Atlantic states, it's going to be 50 in the mid-50s, and there's a 100% chance of rain. So if we would have, and then Sunday there's thunderstorms and a 60% chance of rain. And then we get down into a cold snap for a day or so. But it looks like maybe next Tuesday the temperature might go back up to 40. I don't know. You can't trust these people. Looking at this, even though we can't see this in motion, it seems to me that there's a potential southerly flow of water vapor coming off of the South Pacific heading through Baja, in through the deserts, and it looks as if it's just coming, it has this northerly flow, so it's a southerly flow upwards, into the northeast, kind of crisscrossing, or diagonal to the, across the former United States. And of course, in the Pacific Northwest and the Great Plains, there's some craziness going on. And you can see the mountain ranges up there because of the infrared. The clouds, the reflection due to the clouds on the mountaintops, you can actually make out the actual mountains. It's an interesting phenomenon with the infrared camera, satellite camera, and the clouds. And yes, they're getting a lot of snow on the peaks. So it's unseasonably a little warmer where I am, which unfortunately, for the sake of a guy like me who has a leaky roof, it spells, means Saturday I'm going to be spending a lot of time upstairs. And, like I said, it's Murphy's Law. The idea is that the inevitability that it'll start to rain after I'm in bed. And it'll start coming down in earnest, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., like, when you really want to be sleeping. So it's a good thing I got a good night's sleep last night, and today I got a good night's sleep, and hopefully tonight I get a decent sleep, because definitely on the weekend I won't be sleeping well. If it's anything like several days ago when we had last time this happened, I'll be up there 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night, pumping out buckets. Let's just hope my pump holds out. Because I've basically put these, I'm going to have to order another pump when I get some extra cash. Because, if that thing goes, I've pretty much taped these collection bins, water collection bins, against the wall and in place. So it's not like I even could lift them up if I wanted to. I mean, I could, but I'd be completely out of, and I don't have extra of that $12 a roll tape that you get, a couple of feet of it, this rubberized tape. Yesterday morning, there was a slight drizzle that came through. Couldn't have lasted more than several minutes, literally 10 minutes maybe. And I heard a drop hit the empty container I have under a hole in the front bedroom, the one I don't use. Meaning that all the work I did yesterday, which I swear, I tried to find every possible place where water could be coming down in that area. And just a drizzle somehow made it down all. And it didn't rain yesterday. It was like there was some kind of tiny little brief shower or cloud burst. It wasn't even a cloud burst. Just like a few showers came down for minutes, literally. Parts of the ground didn't even get, wet, But a drop managed to make it down. So I can imagine what 100% Saturday rain's going to be like. Well, anyway, that's my...
This is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare.
Now let's talk about yours. All right? Look at this picture on the screen. And imagine that being on your street, that being in every town across the U.S., Canada, Mexico, South America, all throughout Europe, Asia, Africa. Australia, Russia, everywhere. And then once everything looks like that, carnage, then just more and more happening to just eliminate that so that the ruins don't survive. Right? That there would not be ruins. And people are talking about a flu and an imaginary divisiveness, people worried about words or how they're treated, but it's really just all a bunch of hypocrisy for profit because they're making fortunes on it. Because the people talking about it are becoming multimillionaires. The people who are pushing the divisiveness and all this kind of stuff are becoming wealthy. And in the instance of some victim here or there, well, they're suing too. They're getting legal representatives, and their families are becoming multimillionaires too. But the 19,000 other homicides that are committed that are, colorblind, that aren't motivated by any race, creed, or color, or religion, or any of that stuff, those families, those survivors, they're not getting nothing. They're poor. This Ghislaine Maxwell, whatever, such and such, they snuck that verdict in over the weekend. Over this week, the time between Christmas and New Year's, which is the dead zone where nobody's paying much attention to things anyway. Buried it so they'll start the new year off with something else, like the continuation of the flu and divisiveness. But they never went after all the people who were on the plane. You see what I mean? It's just like, was the woman guilty and all of that and an enabler and blah, blah, blah? Yeah. And did she deserve to be guilty of this, that, the other? Of course she did. No one's questioning that. But the people who committed the actual crimes, right, got off. And now that those court files are sealed, and we're never going to, and no one is, and none of those people are going to face justice. In other words, they took down the hostess or the maitre d' or the person at the door, bringing people into a place where horrendous and horrific crimes were committed. And they arrested that door person, that, maitre d', whatever you want to call them, hostess. Right? And all the people in the room that the hostess greeted or brought in, blah, blah, blah. And who committed the horrific crimes are sealed and have gotten away with it. And they're all the same elite Davos set type individuals that go from royalty to ex-presidents of the United States to Congress people to corporate heads to people pushing the thing in your arm. Right? I'm not going to name all their names because I hope you know who I'm talking about. The leaders of industry, government, and various bureaucracies in this corporatocracy world. If there was ever any proof that we live in a corporatocracy, that this is the former United States, and that Western civilization has collapsed and is now being run by an organized crime syndicate. We just witnessed it this week. And you know what? It was like a whimper. A couple of vloggers talked about it. I actually watched one or two little clips on YouTube where people were, like on some of the mainstream media clips, you know, they'll have a 3-minute clip. And because of this, I was curious to see. And they were lauding this as now there's justice for all victims of. And I'm saying, what are you talking about? There was no justice. Justice wasn't served. You basically arrested the meet and greeter, all right? And you let all the people who committed the crimes go scot-free. I mean, that's not even up for question. That's no justice for victims. That's basically thumbing your nose, giving the finger to every victim of this kind of horrific crime. And you think there's hope. You're going to save America, and you're out there donating. I get these neighborhood thing. I got in this thing, one of these neighborhood things, and I see there's people out there. I'm having trouble paying my bills. If anyone can help out or pass this on through their social media. Yeah, why did you donate to some stupid campaign, or did you overspend on, buying stuff over the holidays,
It's the holiday season.
See, here's the thing I got to tell you. I'm going to cover a lot of stuff today. If you want to listen to this, this is not, this is going to be the truth at 30 frames per second. I told you before, I live at the poverty level, all right? Right at the poverty level. It's intentional. I intentionally did this, all right? This is the game of life in America, in the former United States, okay? I've retired. I have a retirement income that is just at the poverty level. That means that the way the system is set up, and I worked my entire life, and I paid taxes, and I've worked on breakthroughs in technology, in the arts, publishing, entertainment, all sorts of things. I've influenced, I've basically made a difference, and I'm not tooting my horn by saying that. The fact that I lived, I'm confident that I made a difference in this world, that I was on this planet. I made a difference in people's lives. Did I have some perfect life? Can I compare myself to some Mother Teresa or something like that? No way. First half of my life, I was pretty much in my own world. I was a self-centered asshole, okay? Bent on pursuit, of achievement, doing things, driven by, by all of those things that, that people are driven by, right? Fame and fortune, right? Materialistic gain, right? Being the big guy, the boss. And I achieved that. In the second half of my life, towards even later than the second half of my life, I woke up to this. And then that's when I started writing, and I wrote 10 books, and I wrote songs, and I started doing videos, and I did everything I could to share my experiences, but to point out, the downfalls, the mistakes, and wrong turns and foolishness that I have done. All right? So I don't pretend to be some perfect individual who's, don't get me wrong, but I did make a difference. And when I talk to you and I say these things, I speak from a position of someone who has been around, who's traveled, who's done all of these things. Not like some naive protester holding a cardboard sign on a stick, with some magic marker slogan, or who picked up, went to some place and was bussed into a spot and was given, here's the materials, right? Or like when they were dropping off those pallets of bricks so that people could smash windows and stuff. That's a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. In the age of the smartphone, there were too many pictures by too many people with too many phone pictures on too many different sites from too many different angles. All right? We know what went down. All right? We know what's still going down. So there's no justice. And where there is no justice, there is no government. All right? There is no rule of law, so to speak. Not that I encourage some kind of rule of law. I don't really like that term. But there's natural law, right? There are certain things that we should all adhere to, you would think, that have to do with not just common sense and sanity, but with respect for our fellow human beings on this planet. Natural law, universal law, right? Do not kill. That's pretty simple, right? Don't infringe on someone's freedom, right? Be free, like I say. Freedom is fun. Be free. Just as long as your being free doesn't take the freedom of someone else, right? Or infringe on their freedom. The simple, basic, universal law. That's it. The word law doesn't even sound right. It's just the way it should be. It's the way of existence. Well, that's been thrown out the window, right? And what I don't understand is how these people, and I'll say you people, because I find that everyone out there, whoever's may or may not discover this video, even whether or not, who knows if the videos are hidden. They're clearly hidden. Okay? 365 videos that were hidden. 2 hours of my life every day, plus preparation and everything. In between, while I'm doing those, I was writing books and, beat poetry songs and things of that nature. Creating T-shirts, ways which people could have non-confrontation, but to express ideas that could maybe wake people up to the reality of what's going on. Nobody cared. People are living life as if it's just going to go on. Do you see this photo on the page? This is reality. This is the world today. This is the world of the future. This is a real picture that I took. They wrecked in my neighborhood at least, well over a dozen on just my street alone, a dozen buildings. See, because they don't want people living on the outskirts of town anymore. They're doing their damnedest, you see? My house is shaking when a truck goes up because they've been digging up the ground, and I'm thinking that that's part of it. I got a notice from the Water Authority here today that says it's a delinquent notice. I don't know if you can see that. See that? Delinquent notice. But I paid, but their inability to, they have a new website, and I keep checking my online banking account, waiting for this deduction of this fee I paid a month ago. And it was showing for a while, and then it disappeared and vanished. I've had to pay plumbers out of pocket to fix pipes because they've been shaking. The house shakes now because this Water and Sewer Authority was paying these contractors to dig up the road and allegedly replace these water. Now I got to get on the phone and call them. Maybe they're not even working today because it's New Year's Eve. Do you understand? This society no longer functions. This country no longer functions. It functions for the elite. Now, sure, I was trying to explain, and I've shown you before, and I'll show you again today. You know, I have built my Garden of Eden out there. Okay? And, you know, everything going my way, you know. Hopefully I'll be able to enjoy that this coming summer, and my health will be, you know, so will be still with me. You know, I've created my legacy of music. All right? Which you can find everywhere and listen to from Spotify. And if you search long enough, and don't give me the bullshit and say, yeah, I listen, you know, in your mind right now, if there's somebody out there, okay? Because I'll call, you know, yeah, I listen to a couple of your songs, but they suck. And what did I tell you? On my first record, all right? Okay? And I'll show you that one. The one that looks like this. Now, this isn't the greatest quality image, but the one that looks like that, you know, there's like 2 or 3 decent songs on there, but it was an experiment to see if I could create a you know, an album from scratch entirely myself. It was a creative project. And, you know, I guess I should have been a little more, I should have held back and waited, because I've written 50 songs, and since then I have enough for, you know, several albums, you know. But the idea there wasn't necessarily initially was to create a classic album. The idea was, can I write, produce, you know, record, master, go through the process, register through BMI, music publishing, right? Get distribution, be on Apple, iTunes, right? Have a CD for sale on Amazon, you know, and things like that. Music for sale on Google Play, blah, blah, blah. You know, my idea was to master that system. So I used my own work, right, to do it. And I succeeded. Unfortunately, the thing, because it existed and I was one of the first people to do it, on Spotify, that is like at the top. So people go in and they listen to a couple of those tracks and they go, this stuff isn't that good. And they never bother going down. It's like on iTunes. It's at the top of iTunes because I was one of the first guys to do that stuff. Even, you know, it was me and the major record companies doing this. You have to go down on iTunes down to about track 30 to find some of my really good stuff. Well, who the hell's going to do that? It's like on Google. I've talked about this before. Who's going to go to page 3 or page 4? It's on YouTube. Who's going to do a search on YouTube and go and just keep paging until they could find something. You're going to look at the first couple pages, and if you don't see what you're looking for, you're just going to click on something there and go down a rabbit hole. You're never going to go, right? And that's the game they play. The same with my books. My books are on Amazon. I wanted to see if I have an ISBN number. My books are in the Library of Congress. All right? I have an ISBN number. There's a picture of my book over here. My latest book here. Then what? Previous book, Codex here. Last 2 books out of the 10 books I've done. Okay? And I wanted to see if I could do a book, create a book myself. I wrote it, registered it, got the ISBN number. It's in the Library of Congress, and it's for sale on Amazon right now and Kindle and the iBook store. And it's available for ordering at any bookstore in any part of the world. I've had people buy a book in Europe, for example. Japan, I think somebody bought one. And that was my goal, you see? To master a thing. It's like this. If you watch some earlier videos, first of all, I used to produce these videos pre-record them so that all the effects and everything was produced like from my filmmaking background. So I was making videos, and some of those videos are very fascinating. They have really neat intros and various effects. But I wanted to do a live broadcast where I controlled everything, okay? So that I could say, "Good morning," right? Like the real guys do. I wanted to be able to pull up an image live without it. There's no producer in the room. There's no engineers. I have no assistants. Okay? And I worked at it, and I succeeded, and I mastered it. All right? Now I'm able to do it. Other people can do it too. But the point was that was my goal. I was driven I had a creative desire to do a thing. I had content, right? Content of my mind, my consciousness, and a message to get out to people. And I created all of this stuff. From the set, to the production, to everything. So I did my part, and I tried to do that over the past year, and I succeeded. But like many other people, or few other people, because there aren't that many people, I was thwarted in my efforts. I've gone to other platforms like Locals. People are only interested in themselves on Locals. All right? I've sponsored, I've donated to a couple of people. But it's like a Patreon. That's all it is. It's a Patreon for people who, got kicked off of another platform. I had Patreon. Nobody ever gave me any money. I've been on Locals for months and months now. Nobody has given me anything except one friend of mine, which he was just messing around, experimenting. I don't think it's like $3 or $5. I don't know what it was. So, look, we live in a world that has been. I found a poem that I wrote that's actually on that weird CD of mine. That actually was written in 2015, a song, a beat poem, but the lyric to the beat poem, where I was right on with what was going on today. And, I don't know if I could even read. I'll see if I can read a little bit of it. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if I'll be able to necessarily show you this as I read it or not, but if I can, I will. I'm trying to think of even what the name of it was. Yeah, this is it. Let me see if I can, what happens if I go to display capture. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So display capture, I don't know why we're seeing a million of it. Maybe that's why. All right, what I have to do is take this to, bear with me. We're going to read something. Take this up to like 36 point. I think you can see this now. I'm pretty sure. All right. This was written in 2015. It's not just the short attention spans, media jingoism, corporate funded politicians, and the really scary behind the scenes stuff that nobody knows about. The major obstacle to peace and democracy is diversion. Never before in the history of civilization has there been so many diversions for the oppressed. The gilded cage has become even more plush with HD TVs, Wi-Fi, smartphones, custom kitchens, beds, baths, and beyond. As the empire expands and the government becomes a plutocracy and the people have no idea what's really going on. In fact, what is reality is considered fantasy by most. This current societal condition cannot exist indefinitely. There are only two possible outcomes. One, a total implosion that leads to a totalitarian state, which happened. Or two, a grassroots movement that rapidly grows to restore democracy and sanity, which never happened and isn't going to happen. One or the other will occur in the next few years. I was right on. The seeds of both are flourishing now. As far as which one will prevail, that is a matter of how much of a social consciousness remains. And I added this, which wasn't in the song. This song is on 8 tracks, by the way. But this part was just a comment. Judging by the number of backers to my various projects, 2015 may well go down as the last year of freedom in the U.S. Talk about prophetic, right? Yeah, I wrote that in 2015. And that's on that 8-track thing, right? This CD. It's called Diversion Rules, I believe. So it's not as if everything on this particular CD sucks, you know. It's just the idea that the music, I wasn't, you know, musically, radio airplay wise, you know, the focus was more on the poetry in motion, so to speak. But if you're a person that listens to the lyrics, it's not bad. It's not rap though. You know, it's beat poetry. All right, and there's a difference. It was a pretty interesting lyric, written in 2015. That's 7 years ago. And I was right on. And the thing about it is, all these shows have been right on. You know, being cursed with that, you know, it's like my essays in my books and everything. You know, it's a terrible thing sometimes to be right. You know, I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong. I wanted to be wrong. I told people about the disaster that was going to ensue with my own roof leaking. And I just, and I've said this before, is that hopefully I was being over dramatic. But my worst nightmare was then realized it was beyond anything. I wasn't over dramatic. I was like, it was worse than my worst nightmare. Some people have that. It's just a matter of being aware of things. It's not a special gift. It's not a power. It's not ESP. It's not, you know what I mean? People like to some people like to get all spiritual about all kinds of things, It's like my pineal gland's definitely calcified because over the years, man, I drank so much soda pop and all the things that calcify a pineal gland. Forget it. Right? Forget about this DMT experience and all that crap. It's just a matter of having your head on straight and your consciousness and your mind and being aware and opening your eyes and seeing what's really going on around you. It's the same as a photographer. I can't help it that I'm like a Renaissance man. And again, I'm not playing some kind of frickin' game. It's just a reality. It's no big deal. There's other people like this out there. There's many human beings like that. Many came before. All right? But it's the ability to basically look at an image like this image here that I took, right? Which I'm, and saying and framing it and seeing, the depth, the levels of that. I don't know if you really could even, if you even are even capturing, how incredible this photo is. Because not only is it, these doors, this idea, right? But, there's a depth of a building that is in the distance behind it that's also in disrepair. And then there's the mountains, the things that will survive beyond, like the earth, the planet. These people save the planet. You don't have to worry about saving the planet. The planet will survive no matter what, even a cataclysm. Right? People keep forgetting, all these things. And I know myself, I even, I don't talk about it. I mentioned briefly yesterday, about existential threats. But, there's asteroids, there's a couple in particular, like there's one that could hit us in 2027. That's only 5 years away. Possibly 2039. And then there's a 2044 to 2046, and 2046 happens to coincide with that 12,000 year thing. So imagine that. That would be the ultimate, I don't know, joke, pathetic joke. Wouldn't it be a really pathetic joke if the sun, right, is like expelling its shell and we're on the verge of this total cataclysm? Watch yesterday's show if you haven't, where I explained that. And one previous way back where I actually talk about all the major players and get more into the specifics. But wouldn't it be something if while that was happening, to add insult to injury, from the other direction an asteroid's coming, and that, as the sun's coming at us one way, expelling its shell, the Earth is frozen in space on the another side of the planet, an asteroid, an extinction, a near extinction event asteroid hits the Earth at the same time, or right before, or right, or after, like the survivors. Like maybe this is really the end, right? So like the Earth is, and these people survive, and as these people are like, oh, we survived it, they're in these caves. Of course, you're going to have to be in a cave or in your shelters for like centuries. But an asteroid happens to hit the one spot on the Earth where in previous cataclysms, people survive, but this asteroid in 2046 hits that spot and totally just wipes out, and there's nothing left except the planet Earth, which comes back, and it's like when you go down in Central and South America and you see those jungles and the thicket, and underneath all of that thicket, you see remnants of these stone structures from civilizations that existed, anywhere from hundreds to thousands, or longer years ago. There's still many areas that we've yet to uncover because the Earth grows, CO2. Remember, it's a planet of flora, right? The trees, right? And then the fungi are the communication system of the trees. There's a whole life form on this planet that is that will survive. I mistakenly yesterday I was watching in a playback because when I was criticizing Elon Musk, and I was saying about the sun becoming, as it gets older, it's going to get bigger, and I said like 500,000 years. I meant to say 500 million years. Sometimes when you're talking, like I say, try talking for 2 hours straight at 6:13 in the morning, or I started the show at 5 something. It's 2 hours of nonstop talk. You're going to have a slip of the tongue here or there. I always catch it I watch the playbacks, and if I catch it, I always tell you that. But 500 million years is a long time. They call it's like deep time. In science, approaches what they call deep time. The Earth is some 4.5 billion years old. People can't comprehend that, right? People can't comprehend the 12,000-year cycle of destruction, right? They barely can deal with the Greco-Roman era, or the so-called dynastic Egyptian dynastic period, which, like I say, they kind of happened upon that area. Those structures were there from a previous civilization. It was wiped out 12,000, 24,000 years before, maybe 36,000 years old. I think the Sphinx is 36,000 years old, quite frankly. But that's of no importance, Our time has come. This civilization is over. And the idea that people are wasting and squandering the last, who knows, 5, 10, 20, 25 years max, allowing so that wealthy people who own media or news readers, like reporters, could make multi-million-dollar salaries and live in these apartments with these appliances and plush things and go on vacations, right? Elon Musk can play with toys, boys with toys. I want to put a rocket on Mars. Hey, man, Mars is going to be destroyed just the same. And you can't breathe on Mars. I tried to say before, if any of these people had any sense whatsoever, the billionaires, if you were that much worried about clinging to human life, see, quite frankly, what I'd like to do is cling to a beautiful woman. All right? You know what I mean? Humanity. Right? Do people have humanity? These soy boys, right? There's this craziness. Like I said, I was said in a previous show, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? I think it was the day before. This idea where love has become a foul 4-letter word in today's society. People are afraid to say love. Oh, it's a biochemical reaction in the brain anyway. And I just want, and so, so they, they have all the same sex and this, that, the other, and it's basically just mutual masturbation. I mean, come on. But I'm in love with, yeah. Do you know what love is? Would you allow this to happen at the end of civilization? Look at what people are doing. Look at society. It's pathetic. It's disgusting. And why do I even bother saying this, right? Why do I bother? I don't have to do this because I've built my own Garden of Eden to go out, with. But, I just feel sorry for all the people who are suckers for this hypocrisy for profit. And that's all it is. Even a guy like Elon Musk, and I don't mean to be like on his case particularly, but isn't he the richest man in the world right now? And he's got people's dreams in self-driving cars. Who needs a self-driving car? Why would there be? I have a song called Self-Driving Cars, right? Listen to it. It spells out the whole thing, right? A beat poetry track. There's actually a video to it on YouTube. If you watch the one that I made, a little weird video based on an old 50s, 60s cartoonish thing, right? Well, not right. You probably don't know it, but you should seek that one out. But the gist of it is this. It's to sell cars. See, in other words, if you were to put the kind of money they're putting into self-driving cars, these chips, this AI stuff, into like some sort of monorail system, right? What's the whole idea of getting in a car if you don't have to drive? It's to sell cars. It's so the automotive industry, so these people could become multi-billionaires and trillionaires, trillion-dollar companies. There's rumors Apple's even working on a car. I don't know if it's true or not. It's like the cell phone, the smartphone. They just allowed that thing to last too long. It's like bloatware on these computers, right? Everything I'm doing on this computer, I was doing 20-some years ago. And it was the experience and the user interface, the GUI was better. They made a big stink last year or the year before where they added dark mode, right, to certain apps and to operating systems, right? And they talked about it in their presentations. Back in the 90s, we had a thing. We had dark mode, but our dark mode was better because you could make it any color you wanted to and do all kinds of weird things and have transparent this, that, the other. Almost 25 years ago, at least 20, probably 22, 23 years ago. I'm using this computer here that I do this on.
Your papers, please.
Where that sound is coming fed into this computer here that I'm using this open source program that I'm able to bring up this tsunami image. All right. That computer is like almost 20 years old. And it runs everything. But the companies like Adobe and Apple have disabled browsers and certain things on there, okay? Despite the fact that I purchased the software, purchased the computer, own it, all right? So that you can't use it anymore for like internet or email. See, that's their little thing to get you to buy a new machine. They change it so you can no longer get email on it, or you can use the internet. They won't allow you the browser to be upgraded. Right? That's the same thing as this phone now. See, this phone still functions. Okay, I mean, I use a Wi-Fi voice over IP for voice, but I mean, it functions with text, and I know I'm not a texter, but I mean, there's apps and stuff on there. However, when you plug it in, a thing comes up in the photo app that says you have to unlock your phone, and then when you look up and research why does this happen, you see all these people have done this same search and question this. And it's because you don't have the current operating system. Well, if it worked before, if it worked a couple of months ago, why has it stopped working now? You see what I'm saying? On this computer. In other words, that phone worked on this computer. See, I'm not talking about somebody who's upgraded to the latest operating system, right? No, what they've done is you'll get a thing on your that'll say there's a security upgrade, okay? But I'm running on an older the system before the last system. So what they do is I made the mistake of taking this so-called security update. And what that security update was added something to the photo app, okay, that would disable me from allowing to take photos from this and add them to my computer. It's like criminal, the type of things they do. It's like how Adobe, I purchased all these programs. You know, InDesign, Photoshop, right? I purchased them. I say this a million times. I have the boxes. I purchased the programs. I owned them. They weren't cheap. You know, Photoshop was expensive when I bought it. You know, InDesign was expensive. And I believe somewhere along the line, I even did an upgrade before the Creative Cloud thing came into place, where I might have had to pay like $160, like they had a paid upgrade even at one point. So it's not only did I originally fork out whatever, you know, $500, $1,000, whatever it was, you know, for various software programs, because I have Illustrator, you know, I have I have purchased these programs. And then they upgraded. Then it was like, upgraded CC. Because they called it CC. They were really crafty. These people, you know, they have meetings about this stuff. So when I if I look at this, they have like Adobe Photoshop. It's like CS2. And then Adobe InDesign, CS2. Right? Still functions on that computer. Okay, the one that I'm doing this stuff on. Okay, so you see CS2, you know they changed the names. Who cares? Then you see CC, right? So then they change it to a CC, and that seems harmless enough. Who knows what CS? What's the difference between CS and CC, right? You know, all these stupid things. You know, it's like XE. You know, it's like cars. You know. Right? It's like LD, you know, they put on it. You know, remember people saying, yeah, that means limited edition, or LE, right? You know, the Corvette LE or the, you know, such and such LE. Yeah, it's limited edition is what it means. So you see CC, C2, what the heck? Okay, upgrade. So you first upgrade to CC, so now they gotcha. And so the following year, you find out now because you agreed to the terms of service, right? Terms of service. Well, it's not like you have a choice of agreeing or not, because if you don't, you can't use your software, right? All right, so anyway, then CC was Creative Cloud, but nobody knew that until the following year or something like that. And now you had to pay, what was it? You know, I was paying like $50 some a month. I'm sorry, my nose is itchy. Anyway, I don't want to get on this. This isn't about software. This is about what we're seeing here. This is about the end of the world. That's what this show's about. This show's about the end of the world. Right? As the world ends. Okay? Fare thee well. Climate change is not the end of the world. The world does not care about a trace gas, CO2, or any kind of so-called greenhouse gases. Not at all. I just did that thing again that we usually do this.
Really funny. Really funny.
You know, some kind of pseudo near belch thing. That coffee went quick. That last sip was really hot. Anyway, yesterday, again, I want to clear up something because I don't like to leave you hanging. This is the material. This is the Faraday material. It really looks like something right out of Star Trek, sci-fi-ish. Okay? And you cover something with it. So, like, it's actually called, this is the company, it's actually called Faraday Fabric. All right? And, you know, you can put it inside of, like, I don't know if you can see that bag is, like, lined. So you could just take a bag like this, you know, and seal in, you know, wrap some things in some Faraday fabric. Or if I guess it was a real rush situation, you know, without a moment's notice, you could just take this and drape this over top of some things you wanted to preserve. You know, to prevent that EMP, electromagnetic pulse from destroying your electronics. But that's only if there's a Carrington type event, which it's basically should happen any day now. And, you know, which it isn't going to be like necessarily a near extinction event unless it's unless they totally blunder and don't turn off key elements of the grid. Because it's predicted that if there was a serious effects on the grid, that it could take 10 years to get it back up and operating. And the problem with that is within 6 months, society, if you think things are bad now, if the grid went down, within 6 months, people would be like acting like wild, orangutans or something. Do you know what I mean? I mean, could you imagine what people would do? Yeah, remember, I can sit here and say, I know what it's like to not have a smartphone. I have a smartphone, but I got rid of my cell service years ago. And so I have a house phone, but I have a Wi-Fi app, a voice over IP app that I basically can use that as a speaker phone if I want to. But I don't have to. I have like 2 traditional phones that I carry around, you know. And I have behind me here this, you know, old-fashioned analog phone. It still works. Which, you know, I think about that more people should have those. I'm getting like a Charlie horse for some reason. I don't know why. It's like I went for a walk yesterday down the street. And I had a vitamin-rich breakfast, so it's not like I should have some potassium. Was it potassium short? I haven't had a banana in a while, but one banana. I think there was potassium in the stuff I had. That's weird. It just must be the way my leg is. So anyway, So here's how it's going to play out. All right. Sometime in the coming years, all right, it could be tomorrow, it could be this summer, it could be next year, it could be a couple of years from now, it could be 5 years from now, it could be most likely 8 years from now. We'll start seeing some real earth changes. Nothing to do with CO2 or fossil fuels. Nothing. All right? I am so tired of these crazy fucking lying sons of bitches. People with PhDs working for the UN, cock-sucking motherfuckers. It's the last show. I don't give a flying fuck. All right? You are being lied to. Our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 0.9% argon. Okay? When you add that up, that is 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere. That leaves 0.1% left. Not 1% even. Decimal point 1%. 1/10 of 1% of the Earth's atmosphere is left now. Now, out of that 1/10 of 1%, you have water vapor, some CO2, some methane, and other trace gases. They're all trace gases. CO2 is 0.004% of the atmosphere. It is the thing that makes the trees grow. It is the thing that makes the flowers bloom. It is the things for you vegans and vegetarians who are into this stupid climate crisis movement. It's the thing that makes your vegetables and fruits grow and fruit. And in turn, it is also because it gives the trees, the flowers, and the food-producing plants life and the ability to grow and thrive. They produce oxygen, which allows you to breathe. And the sun up in the sky is the thing that heats, and that gives us vitamin D3 and sets off all kinds of other beautiful things in our body to make the plants and us live. We're photosynthetic just as much as the plants. People don't realize that. You've been lied to. Everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. But the UN IPCC report. But Greta said in Scotland they had all these PowerPoint presentations. You know, that thing where Biden went and he fell asleep in the audience. Bullshit. What did you say? Bullshit, man. It's bullshit. You've been lied to. 0.004%. We could have 0.005%, 0.006%. You know what that means? That just means greener trees, more crop production, feed the starving people in Africa and Southeast Asia and South America. All right? That's what that means. Less GMO and big ag meddling with crops and trying to get bigger production from crops. Okay? Because the crops will naturally produce more. What a bunch of bull. CO2. It's a life-giving thing. It's life-giving. It's the planets. It's the planets. You know, it's a minuscule amount. It's a trace gas, but the planet needs it. No, the Earth changes we're going to see are basically due to things that are occurring on our star. Sol. This is the solar system, the sun. We have a weakened magnetic field right now on the planet. In the South Atlantic, there's what they call the South Atlantic anomaly. There's basically virtually no magnetic field. That's not caused by CO2. All right? There's nothing to do with magnetism. All right? Did you ever pay attention even in your basic grade school science class or anything like that? Magnetism isn't, CO2 has nothing to do with magnetism, okay? People. The magnetic South Pole is no longer at the South Pole. In fact, it's left the continent of Antarctica. The magnetic North Pole is no longer at the North Pole. It's pretty much almost in Siberia. We're on the verge of a pole flip. If that happens, we don't even know what that means. All right? But I'll tell you what, it's already showing problems for migrating birds, honeybees, and migrating herds of animals. Because they use, the magnetism is part of their electromagnetic directional finder, if you want to call it that. Okay, that's one. That's already happening. Okay? That's already happening. I showed you yesterday. Greenland, you don't know what you don't know. I'm going to show you again, okay? We're going to go to this. Is the final show. All right? Let me go here. New window. It should still be actually in our thing. We're actual size of countries. Okay? Click 1. Click 2. All right? Mercator projection of the true size of countries. All right? You see this? You are being taught, oh, Greenland's going to melt and it's going to fill the ocean. Well, guess what? This is not Greenland. This little tiny thing is Greenland. Okay? You see this, all this stuff that you see on the map that they've got on the walls in your kids' school's classroom or when you went to school? That's not Canada. That's Canada. You see this big thing here? That's not Alaska. That's Alaska. The U.S. isn't even as big as you think it is, you dope. Russia, oh my God, Russia. Russia's going to take over the world. All of this area here, former Soviet Union bloc, blah, 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 that's Russia. Okay? Do you understand? Do you understand? No, you don't understand. You probably don't even believe that. It's the truth, though. It's the truth. But it's another example of everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. Of course, if you believe, oh, Greenland's melting. Of course, if you look at stuff like that, you're going to get, the temperature in Alaska, Alaska ice. Yeah, if you look at a map and you go, my God, look how big these places. They're not big. When they flattened out the map, a globe, all right, to focus on Western civilization primarily, where in Africa and South America, where people mainly populate, all right, the upper areas, which they're not concerned about, got distorted because the focus was on this area, and it was like, so they stretched the top, got stretched down. It's like these stupid flat earth people, right? They see some kind of UN map or something, and they have no idea. Look, I told you. I've covered expeditions from the South Pole. I know a guy. I know a couple of guys, actually, personally. I worked on with 2 explorers who literally walked to the South Pole. All right? Covered daily expeditions that took months. All right. Live video satellite broadcasts. Mapped it. Yet you know that those videos get more, like literally millions of views, and I get 0 views. Right? People believing in hooey. There's some woman I was following when I looked for some weird stuff. There's some woman who actually had a picture of a cloud. You know, there's a certain cloud formation, and I don't pretend I'm not a big cirrus nimbus and all this kind. I don't have the total recall of all the various kind of clouds. I'm not a meteorologist, okay? I don't pretend to be one. But there's that certain cloud that's like a roundish cloud that kind of has that almost UFO look. But it's a common cloud, and you see it, and it happens all the time. I don't know. Somebody who is a meteorologist could tell you right off the top what kind of cloud it is. And there's this woman, and she's got tens of thousands, if not 100,000 views. And she's saying a UFO was spotted over such and such, and it's one of those fucking clouds. YouTube. Why don't they take her down? Take people like that down. Why don't they take the flat earth people down? All right? All right? And why don't they take ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, Fox, CNN, Newsmax, and all the media down? Because they're all liars. Right? They're all just passing liars. It's all like basically, why are they allowing hypocrisy for profit? Do you know why? Because they're making money, because they're all monetized, because the YouTube millionaires, the lion's share of the money goes to YouTube. So it's hypocrisy for profit. So meanwhile, the world is ending. Here's a picture I took. This is a prelude to the days ahead. Do you imagine what's a kid gonna do? Okay, and when I say a kid, I'm talking about people up into their 20s, because we have this Peter Pan culture now. Man, I couldn't wait to get to be 18 and then 21. Of course, in my day, it was like 18 because drinking age was 18. I wanted to be a man. All right, I wanted to be an adult. Right? I couldn't wait. I didn't want to be a kid my whole life. It's like these people, it's a college life until they're like in their 40s. All right. What are these people going to do when a Carrington event, a grid down situation goes, and this thing no longer functions for them? Done. No app, no TikTok, no Instagram, no texting, no nothing. What are you going to do? Well, it won't happen. Yes, it will happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in your lifetime. I could say that with 99.9% certainty, the same way as I could tell you that CO2 is a trace gas and 99.9% of the gases in our atmosphere are not CO2. The same way I could tell you that 99+% of the people did not die from that flu that they've been pushing for the past couple of years, and they still seem to be pushing, even though now they got pills, antivirals, which, by the way, if you do your due diligence and research, you'll find out that these antivirals that are coming out now are old, are 20 years old. They're producing them. They were produced about 20 years ago, but there wasn't a market for them. But now they can sell them to the government and make hundreds of billions of dollars, so they're going to release them. So like the FDA is given emergency authorization use to Pfizer's drug that they're going to start distributing in January, okay, which is basically a 20-year-old drug. That's a fact. But they just couldn't sell it 20 years ago, so now they can sell it. And the government's going to buy it up and distribute it. By the way, it's a good thing because it has an 87% efficacy, which is actually better than the things that they're giving people in the, there. Because people who have gotten that are getting, whatever. It also eliminates the need for that, right? I mean, if there's a pill for something that you could take, the way I understand it, you call your doctor, you have it. If you have a positive test, you get a prescription, you take 3 pills, 3 days, and you're cured. 87% efficacy, which means effectiveness, in case you don't know. Right? That's like really high. All right? The Merck one is only like around 50-some%, which is still pretty decent. But I mean, 87 is like high. All right? Which means if you have a good, decent immune system, you eat well, and you take this, you're fine. You're home free. Well, why do they want to keep pushing these things and these boosters and all that stuff? Because it's money. It's hypocrisy for profit. It's money. This is the end of the frickin' world, and we're worrying about that. You know, they haven't even talked about the superbugs, right? You think this is a frickin' flu, man. 99% of the plus of people didn't die from this thing. See, they focus on the 1% or the less than 1% of people, depending on the age group, all right, and the individual. If I told you, oh man, don't worry about it, 99%, that hasn't killed 99+% of the people aren't dying from that thing. If that's the way it was presented, imagine if somebody was saying that way on one of these networks, right? I don't worry, it's 99. There's like 90. That doesn't affect 99+% of the people, man. Don't worry about it. You'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm not worried about it. Right? But if I said, 700,000 people. Yeah, out of 330 million in the U.S. See, you don't understand. Numbers, figures lie and liars figure. They use percentages when it works in their advantage to mess with you and fearmonger, and they use raw numbers when they could fearmonger and it works to their advantage. It's all basically hypocrisy for profit. Okay? You can't argue that point. The fact of the matter is 99% plus, like I say, depending on your age group, and whether or not you're an old person with diabetes and obesity and heart disease, etc. Yeah, you've got a greater chance, and you certainly. And then from the very outset, that's what they should have focused on, like they've always done in the past. To understand, this is insane what's going on now. They're not even talking about the superbugs. There are superbugs out there that could basically take out the entire population, and it's not anything like this thing. It has to do with the fact it's like antibiotics and stuff. You should research that. Research what a superbug is. These aren't superbugs. This is a flu bug. So anyway, forget about that. The sun is going to be our demise. And most likely in your lifetime. And to what degree that we have an event that, whether or not it's a near extinction event or of a lesser degree, well, that's to be seen. But there are still other existential threats out there. It's the same as I was saying about Mars, settling Mars and wasting money on Mars missions. That's not going to save humanity. We've shown those bases on Mars, right? There are a bunch of domes, right, on a planet that has an unbreathable atmosphere that are susceptible to meteors and micrometeors and whatnot. See, our atmosphere, a lot of stuff burns up in our atmosphere because we've got this multi-layer atmosphere, at least. Right? You see it. Shooting stars and stuff like that. That's like stuff burning up in our atmosphere. It's not, it's not a shooting star. It's what we call it, but it's not. It's basically, something burning up in our atmosphere. Most of the stuff burns up in our atmosphere. Well, Mars, the stuff's not going to burn up in Mars' atmosphere. Those pictures, those illustrations, those drawings, see, Elon Musk he's out of his fucking mind. I hate to say that. That's not going to save humanity. I mean, this is an old world picture on my screen right now of a destroyed building and ruins in the background. Okay? But you can just take your modern dome, Martian domes and all that stuff, and it'll just apply the same type of destruction. Any solar event that hits us here is going to hit Mars, and it's going to hit Mars worse because it has less of an atmosphere. Mars is getting hit by rocks all the time, right? What kind of life is it to never be able to go outside? What about Legionnaire's type of disease? Like something that, gets into these are people who will be constantly living in an air filtration system. All right? I mean, do you understand the mechanics, all the factors that go into trying to build a civilization of people that have 100% artificial environment. Okay? 100% an artificial environment. With an atmosphere they'll never be able to breathe. Well, they'll terraform the thing. The time it would take to terraform that planet, the civilization there wouldn't last. And the Earth would be gone by then, or the Earth will have had catastrophic failures here. See, it's just a matter of time. The point is, what people don't understand is we also have this thing called the Maunder Minimum, right? We're in an interglacial period right now, okay? The Atlantic conveyor slowing down, that could well halt. The whole northern tier of the Earth could end up being a frozen wasteland in our lifetime. Remember the woolly mammoths, the saber-toothed tiger, they were flash frozen. They found undigested food in their stomach. This isn't something that these academics, these PhD type of people, UN clowns, they're getting money from China and the US government, so they just, they believe it. Some of these people have been taught by professors and they have with textbooks, so that they're generational. It's not even their fault. Some of these guys working at Oxford or Harvard, Yale, Princeton and all these schools, MIT, Berkeley. In other words, for generations, their professors and the professor that taught their professor and the textbooks that came out 50 years ago were already teaching the wrong thing. So these people and the papers that were being published, because those papers were being funded, all right? You get money, by big pharma, big ag, big tech, all right? So that the literature that these individuals, these academics were taught, by their professor that they admired, whom they admired, and then, and the list goes on. It's like I was trying to tell you about this divisiveness. There are people out there protesting, thinking that there's some kind of coming race war or something. Their mothers and fathers weren't even alive during the civil rights movement, the successful civil rights movement in the U.S. They're twice removed from it. They don't even know it. I know it. I was around in the 70s. It was a beautiful time of love. The late 70s, after the post-Vietnam War, post-civil rights movement, post-feminist movement, was a beautiful time in this country for people of all races, religion, colors, and whatever else you want to throw in, genders and everything. People were just like having a good time, and everybody was like, it was party. It was party time. Okay? People don't understand that because they're twice removed from it. And it's the same with these professors and and these school teachers. They're teaching people stuff they were taught. They don't know. They have no direct involvement. It's like I always try to say on this show this whole year. I only tell you things that I have a first-hand experience from. And if I don't have a first-hand experience, we go to that picture of the Mercator map and show you that this is what it really looks like. That's not some Wikipedia that gets changed all the time, whatever. No, the Mercator, this is the reality. These are things, all right? Remember, I worked with explorers who went to the North Pole, who went to the Himalayas, who went to the South Pole, okay? All right, who went to the Amazon. I'm calling out lies. I'm telling you the UN IPCC is bullshit. That whole thing they had in Scotland, whatever, climate accord thing in Paris and Scotland, it's bullshit. And everything the media is pushing out is just fear-mongering crap. There was a time when you could say something like this.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
But it's too late now because they've already scared the shit out of every man, woman, and child practically on the planet. They have people afraid of something that 99+% of the people aren't going to die from because of the presentation of it. Okay? They've got people scared of a trace gas in the atmosphere. It's like 99.9% of the atmosphere is not CO2. In fact, CO2 is such a small percentage. It's they call it a trace gas. What are you going to do when the northern latitudes get cold? How are you going to heat them? Oh, we'll use solar and wind. No, you're not. The windmills would freeze up. The solar panels would be covered with snow. Well, we'll brush them off. The solar farms. They can't produce. It's not enough BTU type of things. Understand, in the hot climates, you need air conditioning, and in a cold climate, or refrigeration at least. We lived without air conditioning. But you need refrigeration because of the mass populations we have, and food and transportation and all that stuff. It's like Tesla cars. What do you think a Tesla car runs on? Well, it runs on a battery. It's like electric. Yeah, but what charges the batteries? For most. I'm not talking about the wealthy elite who have solar panels on their roof, or some areas where they have a couple of solar farms or wind. No, the majority of electricity is generated, all right, through fossil fuels, gas, and coal. If you happen to be near like one of the big dams, it's hydroelectric, all right? If you happen to be, I guess, next to one of these big solar arrays or wind farms, you might get a higher percentage of that into the mix. But predominantly, I don't care what graph you see on the internet, what kind of hooey that they're trying to throw at you. The fact of the matter is it's gas and coal, mostly in the northern regions, to generate the heat necessary to heat homes and businesses, to forge steel, to melt glass. Like the iPhone, these people, they like to say things like, oh, we're almost 100%, recyclable and all that stuff. Yeah, it's recyclable, but how do you think you remelt that aluminum, and those components and that glass and mold all that, forge that? It's done in furnaces. Do you understand? Everything you know is wrong, and you don't know what you don't know. Mars is not the answer, Forget it. We're headed for this is the end of the world. And this isn't like a biblical thing, like the end is near, because God's going to, No, the end is near because we're at a point where the sun is basically going to go through a cycle that it's gone through, so many times before that we don't even know throughout history. Okay? I mean, that's reality. That's not made up. All the science is there. All you have to do is look at it. And then look at civilization. All right? Now, imagine what's going on right now. Like, here's another thing that you don't understand. So simultaneously to the fact that within the coming years, and like I say, who knows? It could happen tomorrow. It could happen 6 months from now, a year from now, 8 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe even as far as 20 to 24 years. There are some people think, but the signs are already happening that's the far distant things, meaning a decade or two out, are less likely. It's more likely we're seeing the beginnings of this thing already. But let's throw all of that aside, even though in my mind it's inevitable, right? Because there's a convergence of things that are happening right now, okay? It's not just one or the other. There's so many things that are at this particular moment in time, that spell near extinction or something, a civilization, altering event. But let's just look at people in general. Let's look at how they stuck this stick in the hornet's nest in the U.S., in Western civilization, how they took down the U.S., this is the former U.S., it ain't never coming back, and how Western civilization was destroyed. All right? And we have this totalitarian state now. Look what's going on in Australia and stuff. And like I say, I've been to Australia 3 times. I've been around. These people who protest, even these people who have vlogs, have you been there 3 times? All right? No. Oh, you went there on a vacation once. Okay, great. You saw all the sights in Sydney, drank at a few pubs. No, I was there. I was driving around in the Jeep that was in the Midnight Oils music video out in the outback, man. People think they know things. All right? Look at the major crime in the major metropolitan areas. Look at the thugs, the smash and grab thugs. Look at the legal system, right? The criminal justice system, how it's basically just look the other way, and there's rampant crime everywhere. Generational crime now. You think that the 12-year-old kids aren't watching the 19-year-olds do the smash and grab? What about gang culture in this country? Thug life, all right? Rap thug life in this country. Detroit, Chicago, all right? Atlanta, Philly, New York, L.A., Houston, and many others. The cities are falling apart, man. It's a disease, and it's spreading. And it's spreading. And you know who has the most of it? The youth. And people are saying, save America. You know who's saying save America? A bunch of older people. Who's the big cult of personality? Donald Trump's going to save people. He's an old man. Who's going to fill? You know Trump's problem was he had no idea about the West Wing. He apparently never watched that show. See, the Biden people, the people in the West Wing now, they all watch the West Wing. So when they're in there acting the West Wing out. In other words, they're going through the motions of government the way, in other words, TV, government now is being like TV. Right? They don't have the people to populate that. They don't understand how it works. And you can't change a thing because then you become a totalitarian state. You see? In other words, you replace one dictator with another dictator in a sense. Because what you're going to do is that if you wanted to come in and say, we're going to save America from these crazies who've taken over the asylum, right? The lunatics have taken over the asylum, because that's what Washington, D.C. is. It's an insane asylum. And so the lunatics have taken over the asylum now. I mean, that's a pretty fair thing. I don't really jokingly say that. I'm serious about that. Okay, so you're going to come in and they're saying there's going to be this big red wave. Okay, so this other group comes in. Well, what do you do with all these other people? What do you do with the thug life crew? What do you do with all the gangstas? Right? What do you do with all the smash and grab people? All these murderers who get away with murder. What about the institutional people that Trump didn't, the so-called swamp that Trump couldn't do anything about? The FBI is corrupt to the core. People were saying a few bad apples. Well, we learned that there weren't a few bad apples. It's pretty much corrupt to the core. There's a few good men in the FBI now, and women, is what it is. It's the complete opposite of what they said. It's not a few bad apples. It's a few good men. It's like the cops in New York City that are like doing all this stuff to kids, arresting kids, old ladies, right? Orthodox Jews can't mourn, they're dead. I mean, it's immoral, unethical, and it's just downright wrong, right? So it's like a few bad apples? No, there's a few good cops, right? That's what it is. There's a few good cops. There's a few good FBI agents. Maybe there's a few good people in some of the other alphabet agencies. All right? So what do you think you're going to change? You're going to come in and what? You're going to do what like Biden did? Let me get this thing down a second. And have a stack of executive orders and then be a dictator and make your dictates? And people are going to, and what? And it's going to be riots in the street again, like there were, a couple of years ago. You got to remember, BLM and Antifa have received, if not hundreds of millions of dollars now. Every movie, every TV show practically is all there's a whole, they've had years now where they're just messing with people's minds and warping them. People don't believe in the former United States culture anymore. The U.S., it's the former United States. Western civilization has collapsed. So anything that would happen and any change that would come would be the same as what's happening now, would be totalitarian. You would have to enforce it with basically like they're doing now with the SS, and it would have to be another Stasi state. It would just be the same surveillance state, just pushing a different agenda. But you're less likely to succeed because it was tried 4 years ago, and it was met with the institutional, creep that had occurred over the years, which now is rampant. So forget about the concept of civil war. We already have civil war going on. It's an information civil war because it's a war of lies. Everything people know is wrong. The most educated people in this country have been taught, all right, wrong. So they think they're living in the moral high ground, okay? It's hypocrisy for profit, the practice of claiming to have a moral standards or belief to which one's own behavior does not conform. It's all pretense. But they believe the bullshit because they're 2 stages into it. It's just like the young people. It's their country, remember. They're already brainwashed. All right? From like kindergarten or preschool on up through college and graduates from college now. That's the population. And so you got these old men and old women who are whatever. And yeah, there's a few people in their 30s and 40s who've got blogs. Hey, Tim Pool, I'm in the middle. Yeah, but you're making a fortune and you're building a frickin' compound with weapons and stuff out in West Virginia. Come on, man. What kind of bullshit is that? Joe Rogan, right? Making millions. YouTube millionaires and multimillionaire news readers on both the left and the right. Okay? It's all bullshit. It's like that Ghislaine Maxwell. Take away the hostess, all right? Right? The stewardess, in effect. And convict her, but all the people on the plane got away with it. The people who committed the act and went to the island. Oh, that's all sealed now. Case dismissed. And on all the news media, they're going, oh, this is justice for every victim of a... How's it justice? Yeah, she deserved to go to jail for life. But you just let all the people who actually committed the physical crimes off, right? Oh, I didn't think of that. Do you think anybody's going to ask that question? No. I'm telling you, man. Look, we have natural cyclical disasters on the verge of happening. All right? You will not be able to, and more than likely, at 8 years max, you probably won't be able to use your cell phone, your smartphone, your apps, your internet. Now, let me tell you something. I had the time of my life before the smartphone. I met Steve Jobs, by the way, okay? And I was one of the first apps featured on the Apple website, okay? All right, before the App Store and before all that stuff came in, I had created a couple of things for the in the right when it began. All right, but the point was, to me, it was just a thing, and it was cool and blah blah blah. I love tech. Look at me now; I'm using tech. All right, and I'll preserve tech. Right? Faraday cloth, Faraday cage. Think about it. All right. I've got my Garden of Eden already happening, okay? All right? And I've got a couple of solar panels. I've got some, I could survive. What do you need to do? I can brew my own beer. I could listen. I could keep my music playing. I could solar, charge my power pack. All right? And my battery solar charge, I have a solar battery, regular battery charger, thing that charges like regular batteries. All right. I have all that crap. So I'm fine. I'm doing this for you. This is service to others, not service to self. I may have been a self-centered fool when I was a younger guy, but I'm helping you. I'm not making a dime on this. Not a dime. I'm trying to give you the warning, the reality of the situation. Okay? Well, let me tell you, before the frickin' smartphone, I had the time of my life, and so did just about everybody else I used to know at that time. It was fun as hell. The 90s were good years. All right? Were great years. I had a blast in the 80s. All right? I had a really good time in the late 70s. All right? And as technology came along, the internet, and computing and all that stuff was fine. My advice to you is take the best that this technology has created, pack some, put them into an envelope with some, Faraday cloth. Save a few objects. So we get a Carrington event or something a little bit stronger than that, or blah, blah, blah. The grid goes down, the internet's down. You've got your music preserved and some information preserved. And don't forget, there's books. I got books to read. Make sure you got glasses. All right? You know what you want to focus on? Glasses and seeds and planting. All right? The basics. Life. People. All right? Pay attention to people. Get yourself somebody to sleep with. Right? Or at least somebody to hug, somebody to talk to. All right? Remember, you're not going to get rid of the thugs. They're growing in numbers. The gangs are growing in numbers. 2 million immigrants came into this country this year. All right? And they need. All right? What are they going to do if they can't get anything? Right? Like I said, if I would have talked to them, I would have told them the truth and said, you're coming here at the wrong time. The time to come to the U.S. was years ago. Not now. This is the wrong time. This thing is falling apart. This house of cards is collapsing. So anyway, I don't know if you guys really understand what I'm talking about. And I know that if you do research and you look at the internet, look, I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 things on the internet are going to give is a lie. Everything you know is wrong, and what you don't know, you don't know. And I don't know, I did 365 shows, an entire year worth of shows. And it's almost virtually impossible for you to, in other words, if they averaged, an out 1.5, say, if they average an hour and a half, say 1.5 times 365, looking at my calculator here, it'd be 547 hours, say, divided by people's waking hours by like 12. It would take you, well, no, who's going to, that's ridiculous. If all you did for the majority of your waking hours, like 6 hours a day, in other words, you weren't working, right? And when you weren't eating or doing some errand or something like that, it would take you 75 days in a row. And that would be binge watching my shows every day. Okay. All right. That's over like 2.5 months or something like that. You're not going to do it. You can't do it. You can't even comprehend it. And if it was less than that, it would be, literally it would take you the whole year, because these are 2-hour shows. So who's going to want to spend more than 2 hours? So it would take you an entire year to really grasp all the things I've thrown at you. Unless you started going through certain shows and go, well, because there were some shows that were just fun and games and all that stuff. And we had the holiday shows and all that kind of stuff, right? Last time we'll play this for the year.
It's the holiday season.
So we did that kind of thing. But anyway, that's that, man. I tried. But it's over, okay? And, this is the future. This is reality.
Morning.
Face it. Deal with it. Thanks for watching. Visit TonyCaravanLive.com or RockFlux.com. I'm on Locals for now. I'm not sure if I'm going to stay on Locals. I was thinking about doing the Rumbles thing and stuff like that, but I don't know. Go to Great Solar Stuff if you want to save your ass and improve your quality of life when the power goes down. Get some power stuff. And by the way, why don't you buy one of my 10 books and download some of my really cool songs and save them to one of your iPads or an old iPhone. All right? Take care and good luck.